Chapter 12 of Tractor Ballet Gone Bad. Ernie collected himself as we had a smoke huddled in the security of the fence corner. Well, Ernie, are you going to go down to the pond and see how the rest of it played out? Todd asked, flicking his butt into the wind. May as well, Ernie replied. I've come this far. I knotted the two ropes together as Todd tied one end to the fence corner. This part's a piece of cakewalk, Todd said. Just a gentle slope down to the pond. Nothing here to scare the shit out of you. Good thing, Ernie retorted. If I get any more shit scared out of me today, I'm going to need bigger britches. That's where you crawled across the ice, Scotty? Ernie squalled, once again mortified as he pointed to the now sodden indent I'd left across the pond. He snatched Todd's T-bar from him and cautiously worked his way a couple of steps out from the shore. Reaching out at arm's length, he poked the T-bar effortlessly through the pond's surface in 4 or 5 places. By God, he said, turning towards where Todd and I were watching in apprehension. Why, that ice ain't ice at all. I don't know what the hell you'd call it, but it sure ain't ice. Call it what you want, Ernie, Todd said, but I'd feel a damn sight better if you got the fuck off it. Look down at your feet, Ernie, I said, as an inky gray stain spread outwards from where he stood. Holy buck shit, Todd, Ernie cried, as whatever you want to call it he was standing on gave way beneath him. Oh shit, Todd yelled as he wrenched the T-bar from my hand and crashed towards Ernie, who was plummeting straight down into the pond. Todd reached Ernie just as his descent down into the pond was abruptly halted. Todd and Ernie shared a look of mutual stupefaction as they looked wide-eyed at Ernie's feet. The water swirled about an inch below the top of his rubber boots. You do that again, Ernie, Todd said, grabbing him under the arms and placing him on the shore. I'm going to be the one needing bigger britches. Ah, Todd squealed as he went down. He came to a stop with the water about halfway up his boots. You look like you need them britches now, Ernie said. If anything more was exchanged between them at that point, it was lost on me as I rolled in the ground laughing hysterically. Pull yourself together, ain't all that damn funny, Todd muttered, hauling me up onto my feet. Yeah, there's that perspective thing again, Todd, I laughed, wiping tears from my eyes. Is that where you went through the ice? Ernie asked, pointing several yards down the pond at what was now a jagged open scar on the surface. Yeah, Todd and I responded simultaneously. Well, I don't understand what happened. If you made it across there in your belly, Scott, how did you both end up in there? Well, Ernie, Todd said with a flush of embarrassment crawling up onto his face. Scott had made it across, but for some reason I couldn't bear the notion of him leaving me down here alone while he went up to get ropes and stuff. So what, you thought you'd crawl across after him? You got 80 pounds or more on him, Todd. What were you thinking? Oh, it's worse than that, Ernie, Todd said, looking down at his feet. I tried to run across. Say what, Ernie bawled. I guess I panicked, Todd said softly, shuffling his feet. Panicked? Panicked, you say, Ernie yelled. You just didn't panic. You lost your fucking mind, you young damn fool. I believe I commented something to that effect at the time, I interjected, hoping to diffuse Ernie somewhat. What in the hell, Todd? Ernie continued to rant. Do you think Scotty was going to leave you stuck over there? Ernie wheeled on me before Todd had a chance to respond. And you, he ranted. How far do you get across before he went in? Well, more than halfway, I said, lightly, still hoping to cool Ernie down a bit. You should have seen it. It was like he was half fucking way, Ernie bawled, yelling, waving his iron wildly about. You ran half fucking way out there and crashed through the ice yourself to grab onto him. You could have both drowned. I didn't think about it, Ernie, I howled in protest. If I'd have been a second later, you'd have been swept under the ice. For fuck's sake, Scotty, you could have both drowned. I didn't think about it, Ernie. I just did it. Same as what Todd did for you there a couple of moments ago. Ernie fell silent and ceased waving his arms about as he gave consideration to what I just said. Besides, I continued, I owed him one. He saved my life on that cliff over there with no less risk to his own. Down there. Well, I assume you meant no pun there with that going down bit, Scott, Todd quipped, laughing. I'm losing my fucking mind, Ernie muttered, rubbing his face in his hands. Come on, Ernie, buck up, Todd said. We're not done yet. One more go before we're out of here. One more, Ernie said weakly. This just gets worse and worse. Or better and better, depends on your perspective. Wouldn't you say, Scott? Todd laughed as he slung his arm over Ernie's shoulder. Come on, Ernie, this last one's going to finish your breeches off. It didn't take us long to get up from the pond and over to the fence where Todd and I had belly boggined across the tractor path. And en route, I related to Ernie how we'd come to find ourselves in this predicament. Todd and I watched Ernie as he studied the scene. The implications of one or both of us falling short of sliding across obviously wasn't lost on him. The devil must have thought he had a hold of a couple of eels, he said, turning towards us. He'd think he had a hold of you, and you slipped his grasp yet again. Before Todd or I could respond, he continued on. Scotty, take me back to where you crawled over the water again, would you? What for, I asked, aghast at the notion. I just want to see it again to get it straight in my mind, Ernie replied. I was a bit overwhelmed the first time. Before I could respond to the effect of I'd be content to give that a miss, Todd piped up, Sure, Ernie, no problem. Let's go. A couple of minutes later, Todd asked, What? Did you catch what he said, Ernie? Something about a boat? We approached our objective a little differently this time in that Todd and I tied off separately to two different posts, with Ernie cross-tied between us and T-bars in hand, penguined our way out. Having chipped out our footing, arms linked at ropes and T-bars firmly in hand, we stood somewhat comfortably, looking down again at what I was coming to think of simply as the black horror. Comfortable being a relative term, as it took a concerted effort to keep my toes from chewing through the soles of my boots. Todd and I pointed out our hands and footholds as we described to Ernie how we'd managed to work our way over the ugly black waters and down onto the pond. What was that, Ernie? Todd asked, at the summation of our narrative. A piss pot full of money, Todd, Ernie replied. I said you couldn't get me to crawl out there if there was a piss pot full of money on the other side. No, a wheelbarrow full. 2 wheelbarrows of money spilling onto not for all the money in the world. You'd have to hold a gun to my head, and even then I'd just say, you go pull the trigger, mister. It'll be a more merciful end. You wouldn't have had a chance, he concluded, shaking his head. Get me back to the fence, lads, would you? My toes are sore from trying to worry their way through the bottom of my boots. As we cautiously and awkwardly got ourselves turned around, Ernie had one last look over my shoulder down into the mouth of the ravine. He wouldn't have stood a chance, Scotty, he said solemnly as our eyes met. My toes hurt too, Ernie, I laughed. How are your toes, Todd? Come out through a while back, Todd laughed in reply. Better now, they're numb again, actually. You boys have a peculiar sense of humor, Ernie commented as we began our awkward penguin-like shuffle back towards the security of the fence corner. Excuse me. I'd like another look at your tractor, Scotty, Ernie announced as Todd and I were coiling up our ropes, and so we moved up the fence and, with arms intertwined, shuffled once more out from the security of the fence line. What's that all splashed over the ice down there, Ernie asked. Scob blubby dib no, Todd laughed in reply. Ernie listened soberly as Todd and I described my attempts and the end result of trying to traverse the windswept ice in our last desperate bid to escape the confines of the ravine before facing the black horror. Well, I'll tell you something, lads, Ernie said as our narrative concluded. I can see how a moment's foolishness up there and a big old dollop of bad luck brought you down in here, but after that, he paused, seemingly at a loss for words. I'm not what some would call a God-fearing man. Gave up that subject, pondering it years ago, too deep for me to fathom, but I'll tell you, he said, waving his arms from one end of the scene to the other. It's nothing short of a miracle you weren't killed coming in here, let alone how you come out alive. From start to finish, from one to the other, for you to come out alive, I swear it must be a higher power at work. I have to reappraise my thinking on this subject matter, because this here is a miracle. Yeah, a genuine bona fide miracle. Oh, lighten up, Ernie, Todd said, laughing. The only miraculous part about the whole affair was Scott's driving. Now listen here, you young McIntyre, Ernie growled, turning towards Todd. I don't think you appreciate the gravity of the situation here. Well, I don't know, Ernie, Todd said, grinning. I could argue I've had a goodly number of experiences today as to the appreciation of gravity. What part of the story did I miss where he got a good whack upside the noggin so as to addle his senses? Ernie asked, turning towards me. Safely back on the other side of the fence, Ernie watched as Todd and I coiled up our ropes. Just a minute, Scotty, he said, if you don't mind. Ernie pulled the hatchet from my waist. Todd and I shared a quick grin as we watched Ernie carefully tie one end of the rope to the hatchet and the other to the end to the fence post. That there's some insurance, Ernie declared as he sent the hatchet skittering over the ice and down into the ravine. Something in Todd's grin must have set Ernie off again as he said angrily, "What's your problem, young fella? You ain't got something against a little insurance, do you?" "Well, hell no, Ernie. I got nothing against insurance," Todd replied. "Why, there were several occasions earlier where I wished I'd stopped on my way up here today and got myself some gravity insurance." Ernie blinked a couple of times. "Do you think we could leave your buddy down here for a while, Scotty? Like maybe under pretext to garden the tractor or some such?" Ernie said with mock anger. "I'm with you in spirit, Ernie," I replied, gesturing down towards the pond. The last time I tried to leave him behind, he went and got all suicidal-like. "All right, Scotty," Ernie said when our mutual laughter had subsided. "Get me the hell out of the place. Get me the hell out of here. This place gives me the heebie-jeebies, something fierce." "I guess you won't be complaining if he leads us on, what did you call it earlier, Ernie? The damn convoluted route?" Todd asked with a grin. "Why, now you got that right," Ernie replied. "I'll follow him across 6 damn counties if he keeps me out of that living, breathing nightmare." Pulling ourselves up the fence into the wind seemed effortless compared to what Todd and I had endured earlier. But I paused briefly nonetheless as to where we were across the fence to rest and let Ernie catch his breath. "You don't want to sit down there, do you, Todd?" I asked, gesturing to the post where he'd parked himself earlier in his delirium. "What'd I want to do that for?" Todd asked, squinting suspiciously at me. "Oh, I thought you might be of a mind you deserve a rest. Like you might want to set a spell and get warm. Perhaps ponder as how to extricate the tractor. See how long it takes for your ass to freeze to the ground." "What the fuck are you on about?" "I don't know or care what either he's on about," Ernie interjected, cutting Todd off. "But we're one hill and scant moments from a good stiff jolt of whiskey, which I'm sorely in need of. You two can carry on with your damn foolishness when we get settled in the kitchen."